Hello, everybody. We'll get started in just a minute or two, but while we're waiting, let's talk about age stereotypes. Find the chat button likely at the bottom of your screen and tell us, what's one thing that comes to mind when you think of a generation much older than you are? Put them in now.
Or much younger.
Yeah. All right, looks like we got decrepit, forgetful. Those are, I think, good ones. More housebound, fading, wisdom, mobility. Let's see. Having gray hair means you are old. Very nice. Chronic illness. See, I'm 18 and I tend to think that older generations have much different lifestyles than me and they have difficulty understanding my emotions in life. Thank you for that. Let's see if any more come in and then we'll get started right after. Oh, tech challenged. Okay. Do you want to give me a little bit more information about that? Maybe we can see if we can offer some helpful tips. All right.
Can you repeat the question?
Sure. So it's, what's one thing that comes to mind when you think of a generation much older than you are?
Limited abilities.
And do you have troubles understanding their emotions and life?
Sometimes.
Let's see. Oh, this was in a response to the 18-year-old. Okay, the last comment. All righty, let's get started. Welcome to What's Age Got to Do with It? My name is Krista Thielen, and I am the events coordinator for Third Place Commons. And thank you so much for joining us today. I want to let you know first off that we are recording today's program. So if you don't want to be on screen, feel free to turn your camera off. For those who don't know, Third Place Commons is a community-supported nonprofit organization located in Lake Forest Park, next door to Third Place Books, although we are a separate organization. And we host hundreds of free events each year and present the Lake Forest Park Farmers Market. Like everyone during the COVID era, we have migrated our programs to virtual space for now, and that's why we are all here on Zoom this afternoon. But we do look forward to reopening later this year, and I invite you to stop in and join us for free live performances, lectures, community fairs, political forums, and more. But for now, I want to let you know about a few virtual events coming up in April. All right. So we have the TPC Movie Club, and it meets next on April 13th when we'll be discussing the Oscar-winning movie 1917, and I'm super excited to delve into that one. You can stream it in advance and then come to discuss the movie of the month and other movies you're loving. Then on April 21st, we have the Commons Community Book Club, which is currently reading the best-selling and critically acclaimed The Dutch House by Anne Patchett, which was shortlisted for the Pulitzer Prize among the other praise it received. The club reads mostly bestsellers from past few years that are out in paperback, and you are welcome to join in. On that same date, April 21st at 7 p.m., we have the first of two Earth Day events, a program on recycling with Republic Services. And then the following Saturday, we have a community town hall on climate resiliency. And if you're interested in these programs or future programs, you can follow us on social media for all the updates, to visit our calendar at thirdplacecommons.org/calendar to register and get the links for these and other free events. And I can put this slide back up at the end for anyone who's interested. So back to today's program, we're just about to jump in, and by now you found that chat button as you've been sharing your thoughts about older generations. So keep using that chat to post questions throughout the program, and make sure you're sending them to everyone and not just one person, so that we can all see them. We may get some of these answered along the way, but Dory will also be happy to field questions at the end if we don't get to yours during the presentation. And one final thing before we jump in, I just want to take a moment to acknowledge Humanities Washington and their terrific Speakers Bureau program, which makes it possible to bring this program to you all. We're very grateful for them for their partnership and support on this. And now let's meet our speaker. Dori Gillam is a speaker and writer inspiring older adults to age creatively. She writes for Third Act magazine, is board chair for the Northwest Center for Creative Aging, and is a charter member of the age-friendly King County Coalition. And of course, she's a member of the Speakers Bureau for Humanities Washington. Dori was born in Seattle and has more recently worked for Sound Generations and AARP. We're happy to have her with us. So Dori, welcome. And I'm going to turn it over to you.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it, Amy, Krista and Amy. Thank you. I wanted to start with asking each of you to consider putting your video on so that I can see some faces when I'm speaking. No pressure here, but if you don't mind, that would be great, because you know, we all want to kind of feel like we're in the same room and feel like we're all together again. So it's up to you, but it makes it so much more fun. Thank you for those of you who are flipping your videos on. I really appreciate it. So I'm going to share my screen, which is the slides that we'll be talking about. And this presentation does have some opportunities for you to share. So I'm glad you're used to sharing. And I'm going to start that slideshow right now. And there we have it. So you should be seeing a slide that says, "What's age got to do with it?" So I appreciate you being here, and here we go. Let's see if we'll be talking about what is ageism, where does it show up, how do you feel about it, and can we be more positive? So to start off, ageism, very simply, is a prejudice or discrimination based on a person's age. And that cuts both ways. It can be younger or older. And we've seen lots of ageism in the last couple of years going both ways. And especially the millennial generation seems to be mentioned so many times, as does the boomer generation. We'll talk about a lot of other generations as well. In fact, I'd like you to start by raising your hand if you'd like to get older. Like, what's the alternative? I think we all want to get older. We just want to age well. We want to have fun. We want to still be creative. And some of the things that you mentioned at the beginning, we don't want to be decrepit or falling a lot or housebound or have chronic illness or be technologically challenged. But we're afraid, many people are afraid that they won't age well. And that can absolutely fire that fear of aging. Let's talk also about the generations before we get too deep into this, because we want to confirm, if we talk about each one, what we mean. Probably not too many people in this presentation who are part of the greatest generation, because they'd be lovely and part of the older group of people that are still alive. But happy to have them, of course. And if you're one of them, that's great. Silent generation is the name of the next group. The baby boomers were born, of course, after World War II ended and everyone came back into their homes and decided it was time to have kids. It's a very huge generation, 78 million people. Generation X came next. The Millennials came next. These dates, these years that are defining these generations are somewhat flexible by a year or two, but this is what most people are agreeing on. And then the iGen and then Gen Z, which is brand new, and they're not here either. So I'd like to cover a few things about how ageism shows up. And we're not clicking the next slide. There we go. How does ageism show up? Well, I looked at birthday cards, and I love sending birthday cards, but sometimes the older we get, those birthday cards don't seem to be as much fun as they could be. So here's one. So you're 50. Are you tired of all the sarcastic, mindless cards you've been getting that joke about your age? Well, that's because the sense of humor is the first to go. Happy 50th. Wonderful. What a thing to look forward to. Here's one that says, now I understand why Peter Pan didn't want to grow up. Happy 50th. Does this person look 50 to any of you? I don't know very many 50-year-olds who look like this, but that's what we get on the card stands. Not a birthday card, but comments that I've heard from one of my own friends who says, those millennials, they're so selfish. I have nothing to say to someone who thinks LOL is a word. Now, of course, you can tell that this person probably isn't on social media because it's been for a decade, LOL has been a word, probably in the dictionary, but it's just understood. And I would say, and I did say to that person, really? So you've never used any acronyms in your life, like ACLU or IBM or any other organization or word short for something? So I don't know if we're looking for ways to separate ourselves from another generation. It's happening. Also, here's another card. There's a reason that 60 and sexy sound alike. That's because the hearing is the first to go. Happy 60th. So what, we don't have a sense of hearing. We can't. That's just great that, the card companies are trying to celebrate the worst things about aging. This is also not a birthday card, but I heard this, okay, boomer. Boomers did that thing where you leave a single square of toilet paper on the roll and pretend it's not your turn to change it, except with the environment. And I know some boomers in my generation get very upset when people make fun of the condition of our environment and our ecology, lack of ecology practices these days. Because many boomers were very much into conservation and very much involved with that. And yet it's kind of a fact. A couple generations, did invent plastic, and it's a wonderful invention from the standpoint it's much lighter weight than many other materials or more durable. However, we forgot to invent what to do with it after we're done with it and what will happen to all the discarded plastic. So that is a serious problem. And many boomers are retired now, and it's like, oh, well. So I can see where millennials and younger generations are coming from. Like, thanks, but no thanks. Here's a card that I've received and sent in the past. Look at those two women over there. In 20 years, we're going to look like that. And you open it up, and inside it says, Helen, you idiot, that's a mirror. So again, making fun of what people look like, or that they look old, or that in 20 years, we're going to look differently. And last, this one, as we get older, we lose our youth, but gain invaluable wisdom and insight. You open it up and it says, lousy trade, if you ask me. Happy 60th. So, these cards are all over every drugstore and grocery store. They are very ageist, and they make fun of aging and make it look like it's really horrific. I don't know why anybody would want to make fun of aging when everyone's doing it. And why would we fear aging when everyone's doing it? So it's a fascinating study in what the media and advertising is telling us. So more about advertising. Have you noticed that older actors are always hired to talk about products involving irregularity and diapers or sexual dysfunction, even though people of any age could actually need those products or want those products? Also, younger actors are always hired to advertise lingerie or wrinkle and anti-aging cream or hair restoration products, and yet people of any age could use those. However, I have seen some lingerie ads lately that have some older women in them. Notice there's not a lot of underwear ads with men in them anyway, but they sure like to see the women in their underwear on the ads. But I think that it's just clear that we're being divided into groups, and I just don't know how helpful that is.
Dory, I just want to, if you don't
Yes.
mind, I'll just, because we've had a few comments in the chat, and before we get too far behind, I might just read a couple of them. So we had one person that said, I've never heard of the term iGen before. We usually refer to what you refer to as iGen as Gen Z. What you label as Gen Z, most of us, oops, I just lost it. Most of us, what happened? My apologies. It's hard to read these chats sometimes. Most of us don't really have a name for them yet. Yeah,
and I'm happily standing corrected. I look up these things in some of the same places everyone else does. And you're right, the last two generations, there's not a lot of, I guess, consensus on what they should be called. So that's okay. We'll get there because everyone has to have a label, so they'll confirm all that very soon, I'm sure.
Yep. And then I'll just read a couple others. I would love to be celebrating my 60th again. I think one misconception that a lot of people from younger generations have is that older people are always more politically, ecologically regressive. And let's see. I think there are just as many environmentally insensitive people of my generation, as well as plenty of activists 4 times my age. And then I don't think you're incorrect about generation age. Sorry, it's so hard to read the chat sometimes. Oh, I don't think you're incorrect about generation age, Dory. I agree that a lot of consensus is the issue, not you generation labels. So a couple good comments.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for breaking in and reading those to me. I'm with the slides on and also the group of people, like not always checking the chat. So I really appreciate it, Krista. Thanks a lot. Let's see. So here's one that drives me crazy when you see a magazine cover and it says the top 10 beauty mistakes that older women make. Like, thanks a lot. Why do we have to call it a mistake? It's, again, just body image. And here we go again. Also things like the 5 hairstyles that make you look older. Like, yeah, gee, I didn't know my own hair could make me look older, but maybe. And then there's the whole idea, someone mentioned in the original question about we think of gray hair and when people get older. Yes, some people do get gray. I don't have any yet. I don't color my hair. My mother didn't turn gray till she was 92 or 3. She began to have some little gray streaks. And I had been her caregiver for 7 years, so I know darn well she didn't do her hair. But yeah, it widely varies. And I have a couple friends who were gray by the time they were 40. So yeah, it's just something we have to take a look at, just like any other stereotype. It doesn't fit. A group of people is not a monolith. So I think part of the problem is we also have forgotten what 65 looks like. And I just chose 65 because, it's still considered a retirement age, not the retirement age, but a retirement age. And I think we just haven't come along with the time. So who knows what this famous picture is, or the name of this famous picture? Yeah, Whistler's mother. And that the artist who painted that picture did paint that picture when his mother, that is his mother, his name wasn't Whistler, but when his mother was 65 years old. So she looks a little different than some 65-year-olds I know, but of course it was painted 150 years ago. And 150 years ago, the average lifespan was about 47. So this woman at 65 is very old for the time. And she looks like she's a little prim and proper, but that was, of course, just the dress at the time. But I think that sometimes we think of that, just like that one birthday card that showed the old man with the cane and the white hair and said, you know, now I know why Peter Pan didn't want to grow up. Because if you're going to look like that at 50, then why would we want to? But I think that we just haven't changed our idea of what older adults look like. So who's this? Tina Turner. Yeah, this was taken. Yeah, this was taken when she was 65. She's older now, but this was taken when she was 65. And now you could say, well, come on, she's a dancer, she's a celebrity, she wears wigs, she's, you know, she has lots of makeup on, and certainly she looks different than Whistler's mother painting. However, I think that we often think it's the exception that people can continue looking, feeling good about their looks, and maybe even taking care of their looks when they get older. We see that as the exception. There's a lot of conversation now about women becoming invisible, especially women becoming invisible as they get older and not even noticed on the street. So I think that we just need to check ourselves a little bit and maybe make an adjustment when we think about age. Carla Hall, who is a Top Chef, says, do we not value our seasoned citizens enough to let them look their age? And that's fun because, of course, she's never done anything to dye her hair. She's not 65 and she has quite a bit of gray hair. And I love that she's a top chef and she calls us seasoned citizens. But yeah, it's kind of like we're not even allowed to look the way we look. And this happens in lots of other identity groups as well. So you're aware of that, I'm sure. But I think that ageism is the strangest prejudice because it's a prejudice against our past selves or our future selves, because as we know, it cuts both ways. And I think it's so sad that here's a group, an identity group that we're all in. Because I've already figured out in my life that I'm not Asian American or African American, and I'm not gay. Those aren't my particular identity groups. However, there's a lot of concern and upsettedness and anger and hate towards different identity groups these days, but we're all aging. It's the only identity group that we're all in. Every single person is aging from the minute they're born. And we're all in this together. We really are all in this together. And so I hope that we can continue to identify the strengths that we all have at any age and can stop kind of making the judgments by generation and by looks. Okay. Here's a quick cartoon from The Simpsons. Grandpa Simpson saying, you know, it's rotten being old, no one listens to you. And Lisa's saying, it's rotten being young, no one listens to you. I've facilitated several intergenerational exchange programs where I get together sometimes middle schoolers and or high schoolers together with people usually over the age of 60 or even 70, and they spend a half day or a day together. And they talk about what it's like being their generation and the positives, the difficulties, and what society says about their generations. And here's one complaint right here with the Simpsons cartoon. But we ask the younger generations, what do you wish society would stop saying about your generation? And we hear things like, I wish they'd stop saying that the younger generation is lazy. They're always on their phone. They're too young to vote. They don't have anything to say. They just kind of don't matter. And then we ask the older generations, what do you wish people would stop saying about your generation? And they often say, well, they say that we're lazy, we're couch potatoes, we're always on the remote, and we're so old, we don't know what's happening anymore, we don't get it, and so our opinion doesn't matter anymore. And when the older and younger generations find out that some of the same things are being said, the alignment skyrockets, and the rest of the day is spent in so much learning and listening. It is fascinating. And I love it when that happens. So yeah, I think we really are all in this together. Couple of labels we hear a lot for older people. They are hard of hearing, or they have bad eyesight, they have memory loss, or they're disabled, or they're elderly. And for the younger generations, we often hear they're selfish, or they're entitled, they know it all, and they're failure to launch. What do all these labels have in common? I know most of you are muted, and I'm going to ask you all to unmute in a minute, but so they're negative. These are negative labels. And usually labels aren't that positive, but these are definitely negative. And they're based on what people can't do, or what they are perceived of as not wanting to do, or on physical characteristics as well. So I personally believe that everyone has gifts, and we'll talk about that in a minute. But you've got boomers saying student loan forgiveness isn't fair to boomers like me who paid for college fair and square. And the younger generations, millennials maybe, are saying, well, yeah, using 6 nickels you found under your grandma's couch, because costs were different then. And we've all been looking at, there's been no change in the minimum wage for so long, and the costs have been rising. The ratios are off. And when we go back to, for example, failure to launch, and people saying, hey, what's going on? When I was 18, I was out of the house, had a job, possibly getting married or having kids and earning my own way. And millennials and even younger generations are also saying, yeah, well, how can I live on my own? There's no job out there that I can get where I can afford my own apartment. And as far as college, I'll just use my own college experience as an example. When I went to the University of Washington, I started in 1970 and graduated in 74. The tuition for most of that time was about $146 a quarter for a full load. When I graduated in 74, the cost of the University of Washington was $188 a quarter. That is eons away from what it costs now for college. And I also had a part-time job, lived with a girlfriend in an apartment that we both paid for. That's not possible now. My parents didn't help us. They said they would, but we wanted to do it on our own, and we did. But that's not possible. So I really recommend that people, especially in the older generations, be very careful calling younger generations lazy, or why aren't they out of the house, and why aren't they supporting themselves, because it's not the same as when we were there. So think about that.
Dory,
so here's
just really quick, we did get a question in the chat that said, could you talk about why saying someone is elderly is negative? I think of elders as being the wise one.
Yes. Well, recently, just like many other identity groups, the nomenclature changes, and the nomenclature that's considered respectful changes, and it has with the older group as well. So for example, seniors used to be considered a wonderful term. They had people who were junior, especially in an organization. You were a junior vice president or something, and then you became a senior vice president. But in the last 10 or 15 years, senior has kind of taken on that Whistler's mother connotation, that they're old and just not as able to contribute to society. So seniors is looked at as a little bit pejorative. By some seniors, not all, but definitely by the overall age group. And then as far as elderly, elder is usually seen as a term of respect, because in many societies, not always American society, but in many societies, your elders are your wise ones, and you listen to them no matter what, because they do have the knowledge that you don't have yet. But elderly often connotes a frailty, inability to do certain things. And so elderly has also become a little bit more of a negative term. And so the term that most ageist experts and people who work in the aging field, like I do, are using is older adults. You just say older adults. And it doesn't matter whether you're 100 or whether you're 50. you're an older adult, and we don't have to divvy people up so much. So that's the latest terminology. Okay. So I have a question for you, and I would love it if you would unmute in order to pipe up to this question. We've talked a little bit about this already, but is there anything specifically that you wish society would stop saying about your generation, whether it's a younger generation or an older generation? It doesn't matter, but you can unmute yourself. I can't necessarily see all of you, but you could either raise your hand or you could just pipe up, just start talking, and we'll be fine. If we talk over one another, we'll say, hold on just a moment. So what's one thing you wish people would stop saying?
I get sick and tired of saying, do you have an email or do you have a smartphone? Why not assume that I have one? Because I certainly assume that they have one.
Yeah, good point. Thank you very much.
Oh, I'd like to speak to that though. Not every senior has a smartphone or an email. They don't know how to use it. They can't afford to use it. They're too set in their ways. It's too frightening for them to use it. And it's like, I don't use apps, and everybody says, well, just download the app. And every time I hear it, I have an actual physical reaction to that. I don't understand them. They frighten me. I don't want to use them. I still may learn. But it's just, yeah, there is a difference in that. Younger people grew up with this, and I know people that, again, they can't afford it or they don't want to learn it or it frightens them. So we need some leeway there.
Yeah, thank you. That's absolutely true. And when the libraries reopen, and there's one right there in the Lake Forest Park Shopping Center, King County Library. When the libraries reopen, please contact your library if you do need any assistance and you can do that now too. Actually, they'll help you over the phone. But if you need any assistance with any of your technology, you can also go into the library so you can actually get some hands-on assistance. And every single library, Seattle Public and King County for sure, will have someone who will help you with that. So if you're interested in being able to use that technology, then take advantage of your libraries. Okay.
I have a question.
Yeah.
I have a friend who says that people always criticize the thing that they are most afraid of themselves. So when people are negative about, have negative ageist terms, I assume that what they really are is just kind of afraid of the thought of growing old themselves. That leaves me with the question, how do you respond to that? What would you suggest would be typically pointed out, well, that's not a very kind thing to say, or that's an inconsiderate thing to say, because I don't feel, I'm not feeling old. My hair is gray, but I have nothing to do with that. I'm perfectly fine with it. So what do you have any ideas, or does the community at large have any ideas?
Yeah, Diane, you have your hand up. Do you have a comment for him?
Well, it's not related to him, it's to mine. So do I need to ask him?
Yeah, let me answer his question first then.
Go right ahead.
Yeah, thank you. Or does anyone else have anything to say to him?
I was having trouble hearing him, so I'm not sure what to do about that. That frustrates me.
Okay, so it says Margaret Miller, but I'm pretty sure you're not Margaret Miller, sir. There you go. Well, he was saying that.
Never know.
Well, no, you never know. But when he was speaking, I just made this snap assumption, but you're right. I shouldn't have assumed that. Since you've identified her now, I guess it was okay that I said that. Thank you for pointing that out. So he was just saying that, what do you do if people kind of generally make the assumption that you are old and you're not able to do things? And he said, well, I don't feel old and I have gray hair, but what does that mean? And as we mentioned before, like, what does gray hair really mean? Doesn't always mean anything. So yeah, I guess I would say, first of all, I'm an optimist and I am a positive person and I like to have fun, and it doesn't matter how old I am. And I'm 69 years old. This is what 69 looks like, just like whether it's Whistler's Mother or Tina Turner or Margaret Miller or her friend next to her, we don't know how old anyone is by looking at them. And we should not assume anything. And as someone also just pointed out, we don't know what gender a person is by looking at them. So let's stop that as well. Why do we have to put people in a category at all? Why don't we just get to know them, find out who they are, find out what their gifts are, their talents are, what they like to do, and what they have to bring to this world? Not sure why we have to put people in categories constantly.
But it feels so much safer to put them into a box.
Well, that's psychology. I mean, I majored in psychology, and humans, they have to make sense of the world somehow, and they like to put people in boxes. But we already have found out through decades of racism, sexism, misogyny, gender attacks. I'm sorry? Oh, someone's trying to get online. We've already found out through all of that, and through horrific examples and harm, that there's no real benefit to slamming people into boxes, because we are all individuals. So let's take the time to find out and listen. You may be surprised as to someone may not fit in that category of old, whatever you thought it was.
I need to talk now. This is
Yes.
Homa Asafi.
Yes.
For those of you who have never seen me or know me, I really like you to tell me how old I look like. You can look at me at any way. I don't have that much makeup on. I just do whatever it is. I'm at home. You see my bed. It does not matter to me. When I talk to people, I tell them right away how old I am. So, but I like any of you to just realistically that you think how old I am. I would love to hear you. I really like to hear you.
Can we do that at the end of the presentation for
Sure.
those that would want to stay? Yeah.
Sure. That refers to what you were saying, that we never know how old a person may look like.
That's right. So
Yeah.
no, you're absolutely right. Let's do this, and remind me, please, at the very end, for those of you who want to stay on the call, to go ahead and do that. Diane, you've been waiting a long time. Let's go to you, and then we'll move on.
Well, my complaint is by old people. I just turned 82. I live in a retirement home. When I turned 80 in this home, I'm going around, I'm an octogenarian, and people say, oh, you're just a baby. And I want to punch them in the face. They're maybe 6 years older than me, 9 years older. I go out, I live near the downtown area. I meet young people, they're delighted. They really appreciate me. Oh, you just look great, or you're doing this, or you're walking, but I'm a baby. Just because I'm 10 years younger than somebody else. So I just need, it's not all young people. It's also ageism in older people.
That's true. And many older adults wear their age like a badge of honor. And I do too. And I probably will always continue, because that's what my parents did. They were not ageist, and they enjoyed each year of their life. They didn't worry about what the number was. So yeah, thanks, Diane. And thanks for waiting so long to talk too. All right, so here we get to what we were just talking about, actually, which is, I really believe that every person has gifts of the head, the heart, and the hands. And we should be looking at that. What can the person do? What could they have to offer? What have they learned in their life, regardless of how old they are? And I would love to hear a couple of you just shout out what a couple of your gifts are, and we'll take about 3 or 4 people. For example, I can tap dance, and I do still tap dance, and I love it. It's one of my little talents. But I'm a writer. I write for Third Act Magazine, which, if you haven't seen it, be sure and look for it at thirdactmag.com. And I love to write, so it's something I can do. So who else? What's one of your talents or gifts?
I don't want to tell my age yet. I will tell you the truth after I hear it. But at the older age, I decided to learn how to play some instrument, and I do learn, I'm learning piano, and I really absolutely love it. And my gifts, if I name it a gift, is languages. I do speak 5 languages, and I'm learning my 6th actually, which is really, really hard, and that is Russian. So I love cooking. I love entertainment. I love people, and I'm very athletic, and even to this age. And these are my gifts, I guess.
Wonderful. Thank you, Homa. All right, let's take 2 more. Who else wants to talk about their gifts? Yes, Mackenzie.
I think a lot of times people kind of stereotype certain gifts to a certain age group, like learning is for younger people, certain things are for older people. And I kind of find myself to enjoy a lot of the activities that my grandma has taught me. I've learned how to diamond paint, which is basically like it's a big sticky piece of paper with like, it's like paint by number, but you have like a little like paster, and like you put thousands of just these little beads and you arrange it into a pattern. I think that has really contributed a lot of artistic creativity into my life, and I learned that from my grandma. So I think stereotypes as to what hobbies people can have are also kind of attributed by age in a lot of times.
Yeah, good point. Thank you. Let's do Kathy and then Zelda, and then we're going to be moving on. Kathy?
Yeah, one of the things, I don't know that it's really a gift, but one thing that I've really discovered after retirement that I thoroughly enjoy is community art. And that means bringing a group of people together to create something visual in our community. And that has been just very satisfying and fun. And it draws in people of all ages.
Yeah, and speaking of that, and to what you were saying, Mackenzie, I think sometimes people during their education years, whatever that means, whenever the majority of your education takes place, usually under the age of 18, and then in their working years, people don't always have the time to pursue a hobby that they might always have wanted to. And so then you do see some people in their later years picking up new things, but also expanding on what they were really interested in as a younger person. And then you get, you know, I guess there possibly are fewer people who pick up mountain climbing than art, but not necessarily, but possibly. And things that people began to learn in school, it could be languages, could be music, like Homa was saying. And then they have more time to learn more and to really expand things and become more expert. And so, yeah, maybe there's a little bit of stereotyping there, because maybe a little bit of it is true. Not all stereotypes are completely out the window, but most of them are, especially the negative ones. All right, Zelda, hi, how are you? And
Dory, good to see you.
Good to see you too. Yeah, thanks for joining us.
Oh, absolutely. My gift, I'm a professional storyteller, and we come in all ages, so cultures, and so it's yeah, it's avoid stereotypes, and it's a great talent or gift to have.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and Zelda's an excellent speaker. She does a lot of volunteering with AARP, and she is a speaker, storyteller, and that means writer, because you have to pull together those. Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
right.
And I have a friend who's into storytelling. It's acting as well.
Yes,
Yes.
I do that too. Absolutely.
Yes.
I mean, at least it seems like it to me when I watch them.
Yes,
We're
that's
watching
true.
a stage performance.
Yeah.
I mean, it is a stage performance.
Yeah,
Yes.
a really good storyteller.
Are you in the Storytellers Guild? What group are you besides AARP?
Seattle Storytellers Group, but I also had a company that I ran. It's called Cause It's Art, and there we take on the personas of different African American women, and we portray them. My next portrayal will be that of Mae Jemison, the first African American woman astronaut. And I'm going to be doing that in May.
Wow.
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 If you
But if you
have any information about that, you'd be willing to put in the chat, then
Yeah,
we
that's
can
what I was
capture
gonna
the
ask.
chat log. Yeah,
That would be great.
that'd be great, Zelda.
Okay,
Yeah.
well, it's an organization that's invited me to do that in Bremerton, so I'd have to probably get their permission, but I can put some information as to the types of characters that I portray and more information about me.
Okay, good. Thank you, guys. And can you imagine if I had asked you to tell me, instead of one of your talents or gifts, if I would have said to you, tell me something you hate to do, you're not very good at, how different the conversation would be. And when we do talk about older adults maybe not having as much technical background and or even being fearful of the technology, yes, we'd like to figure out a way to get them assistance if they want it, but also let's find out what else they can do. Let's find out what they can do. And same thing with younger people. Instead of just complaining, they're always on their phones. Well, what are they doing on their phones? Is there something fascinating in the apps that they have looked at or developed for their phones? And what kinds of video skills do they have? And the other things that are happening in their lives, rather than just you're always on your phone. Hey, there's a whole world on our smartphones.
Did you say you're done with people saying something? I would like to just bring up not exactly a question, a topic that question and people's answers made me think of, and maybe you're going to cover it. Could I just insert that?
Yes, go ahead, and we'll see if we have time.
I think for myself, I was amazed when one time I said, well, in my experience, and then realized like that was true, that I actually had enough experience that I could say in my experience covered a lot of information about whatever the topic of that conversation was. Probably surprised me more than it surprised whoever I was talking to. And when you put out the question, I was thinking more than what I wish people would stop doing is what I wish they would start noticing. So I don't know if you're going to.
We are going to get to that.
Okay.
Yeah, it's true. We are going to ask that exact question. Thank you for bringing it up. You're way ahead of the group, way ahead of the class.
No. And whoever said, because for some reason I can't see the pictures of the participants, but whoever said, oh my God, now I'm having a senior moment. I forgot what I was going to say. Whoever said, that they were technically challenged is on this Zoom. So like you can't be too technically challenged because Zoom has been a wonderful, relatively easy technology to learn, but nonetheless, it's like it wasn't around before last year. So whoever said that, kudos to you, and just know that. You're here.
Tina. Thanks for congratulating someone. So this slide, of course, is a little tongue-in-cheek, but age is not a 4-letter word. It only has 3 letters. So let's realize that. These are 3 generations of respect for each age. This is my, in the red hair, this is my ex-sister-in-law, Kyoko Matsumoto Wright. And she happens to be the mayor of Mount Lake Terrace, but she's been a realtor most of her life. And she was my sister-in-law for about 25 or 30 years, 25, 27 years. And then on the other picture on the right is her mother, Reiko Matsumoto, and her son, my nephew, Yoshio Matsumoto Wright. And they are the most loving family. Yoshi will help out his mother or grandmother at any time, complete respect, absolute loving. I love to be around them. I love to see what they're up to and to be part of it. And it's just the way that, of course, Kyoko was raised by her mother, Reiko, and how Yoshi is being raised. He's 32 now, so he's mostly raised, but he gets to see how things work in many other families, and there isn't always that respect. So I appreciate this group. So Mitch Albom, who wrote Tuesdays with Maury, says, if you're always battling against getting older, you're always going to be unhappy because it's going to happen anyway. So I think we need to, put down the sword and the negatives and the what a rotten life it is to continue to get older, and go with it. Let's go with it. So some people do fear aging, and I've actually heard a lot of these, I think, at the beginning. So I'm not sure I'll spend as much time on this as I often do. People were saying what worries them about aging, or what you hear about aging, is that people might be decrepit or forgetful, housebound, old, fall a lot. They have mobility issues. gray hair, chronic illness, they're technologically challenged, whether it's phone or computer, have limited abilities, have trouble understanding their emotions. Well, and both ages were saying, you know, you may not understand my emotions, my perspective. Anything else that maybe is a fear that maybe you have, or that you've heard other people, you suspect people fear about aging besides those things? Yes, Kathy.
I might add just the fear of not being a contributor to society, not having, you know, a way to give back.
Yeah.
For whatever reason, you know, that's something that happens. So.
It sure can. Anyone else? Mackenzie? Yeah.
I think one thing that I fear as a younger person, a lot of people in my generation tend to stereotype those who are older as, I mean, I'm a person who really enjoys constantly changing my views and opinions to like learning, I guess. And I see the stereotype that a lot of older people are stuck in their ways, and that's just a stereotype. I don't believe that, but the stereotype that a lot of old people are stuck in their ways, or that they can't change from where they are, that all boomers are just stuck in that like bubble of their opinions and just never break out. That's really all I really fear. Obviously there's some other things, but that's one of my biggest fears with aging, is that while I see myself as a very open person now, the stereotypes have me fear that either I won't change as I get older, or that other people will view me as unchanging even if I'm not.
Thank you very much. Interesting. And I've heard that before. Okay, Terry.
I think a fear I have is of being alone or lonely as an older person, much older person.
Definitely, I've heard that too. And there's a difference between being alone and being lonely.
But it's both for me, you know, because I enjoy being around people so much.
Yeah. And then we've definitely seen that during the pandemic, man, with people learning just how much personal contact they need or want, or don't want. And it'll be interesting to see how we each handle coming out of the pandemic. Okay, we'll take one more. One more.
I have one to say.
Yes.
Yes. I think one fear is a type of fear that it doesn't really have a label, but I think it's like the fear that when generations, like say for example, people of your were in the same class as you, like say for example, 10 years later, it's your high school reunion or something.
Yeah.
And it's like, you realize that, oh, well, we're all turning 30. For example, right now, a lot of millennials, at least in my age group, we're turning 30. And so it's like this doom that, oh gosh, we're turning 30. But then some, you know, in my perception, or I've seen other people challenge, like, so why are we fearful of that? There's not really an answer. It's just more like the realization that, oh, you're getting older. So it's kind of, but it feels like it's more of a fear that, oh, we have to fear it. There's no reason why we have to fear it. It's just like, oh, turning 30. What's the doom of that? So.
Yeah, thank you. And that's a good one too. And back to kind of the media and advertising. And I think sometimes, even though we think we're very independent and in control of our thoughts, if the media says, oh my gosh, we're 30, what are we going to do? Or 40 or 50, we get bombarded with it so much. This ageism it's systemic, it's institutionalized, just like many other horrific discriminations. And yet we don't think about it that much. It seems fairly benign until we get older and older and older. And then we realize, wow, I'm being cut out altogether. So yes, I think that's completely valid, Mamie. Thank you. So let's move on to, So one thing that I hear often that wasn't mentioned today is what some people fear about aging is, especially as they get older, they're often afraid of dying. They equate getting older, and it doesn't even have to be the oldest old. It can be just as we get older, and some friends die. People start having heart attacks and strokes and cancers, and many people take this to heart and are actually quite concerned about it, and it's a fear of getting older. I also teach a course called Death is the New Sex. And the reason I call it that, I try to bring humor into everything I do. The reason I call it that is, you know, there were decades where sex was taboo. It wasn't to be talked about. It wasn't to be seen. It wasn't to be discussed in any way. And now, of course, sex is everywhere we go. In fact, people are doing it on the screens and in the movies. And so it certainly isn't taboo to talk about sex anymore. But it still seems to be fairly taboo to talk about death and dying and to really have clear conversations about it. I'm a workshop leader for an organization called Heart Work, and I teach 4-session workshops on planning for your own death and dying. And this is way beyond estate planning. And I'm not a financial planner and estate planner. So it's actually all the non-financial side of thinking about your own death and dying. And as we get older, and what are we going to do? And what would I want? So I bring some humor into that. So I have 3 slides that if you have had a recent death in your family, you may wish to not look at these cartoons, because they are supposed to be cartoons and they're supposed to be funny, but I wouldn't want to trigger anything for you. So I will tell you when I'm done showing these 3 cartoons. They have been in magazines. You know, I didn't make them up. So here we go. So what worries you about aging? Some people are afraid of dying, but I think if we talk about it more and we talk about it in real life terms and bring some warmth and humor into it, that we will be able to handle discussions about death and dying. So my first cartoon is, here's a Tupperware casket, and the woman says, "Oh, Edna would be so Tupperware." The second one is a fishbowl, and it says, "Please, Al, you know that doing the backstroke scares the children." And the last one, so if you still don't want to look at them, please keep your eyes closed. It's in an ICU ward, and whoops. Oh, did I take that one? Ooh, I took it out. Oh, yeah. I was a little nervous about that.
We're brave. Tell us.
Well, I'll tell you what it is. It lists a picture of an ICU room with a man in a bed hooked up to all the machines. And it says, speaking of technology, if I'm ever on life support, unplug me and plug me back in and see if that works. Now I said you didn't have to
rebooting yourself.
Yeah, sorry. Now I said you didn't have to look if you're triggered, and then I said it out loud, so I apologize. Now we're going to go on with the presentation. It's not about death and dying anymore, so I want to look at the next slide. Here is what some people think are the perks or benefits of growing older. Helen Mirren says, with age comes letting go of ego and realizing we're all in this together. Anne Lamott says, I'm all the ages I've ever been. And I'll never forget my daughter saying when she was about 12, "Oh, Mom, you know, you don't understand. You've never been 12. Actually, I have been 12. I wasn't 12 in the decades and with the, you know, the same societal norms as she had. However, and this came up earlier in the conversation today too, like, you know, we don't always understand the emotions of the younger generations today. Well, some of them we kind of do. Some of us have been through some of the things that the younger generations are going through. But yeah, Anne Lamott says, I'm all the ages I've ever been. And maybe that's where some of the wisdom comes in. And when we think of older adults maybe being set in their ways, sometimes it's they've been through so much that they are clear on where they fit in. They're clear on what's good for them. I'll never forget my mother saying, she used to use Jergens lotion, Jergens hand lotion, which I don't even know if they sell it anymore. And I always remember the smell of that hand lotion, which I loved. And then when she was about 85, 10 years before she died, she said, oh my gosh, they changed the formula. And it said on the bottle, new formula. And she didn't like the consistency of it and the way, you know, and the smell was the same, I think, but she was used to the level of consistency when it came out of the bottle. And she said, oh no, you know, they've ruined it. You know, why do they have to change it? And instead of looking like, oh gee, she's so set in her ways, can't she change? Well, she's gone her whole life till age 85, finally founding a product that, you know, she liked or that worked for her and enjoyed it. And I don't know how some of you have found, whether it's lotions or cleaning products or makeup or clothing or whatever it is that fit you perfectly or that works for you or that feels good on your skin, or just a particular habit that you know works for you, like walking every morning or something. And then if you're asked to change it, it's not that you're negatively set in your ways. It's like, hey, I know what I like. I know what works for me. I know what I'm not allergic to. I know what, you know, so I think, again, it's a negative stereotype. It doesn't have to be that way. It's okay to choose something that you like and stick with it, or that you found works for you. So I love that we have learned something in our decades about each of those stages of life. And yeah, everyone goes through them differently. So Susan Sarandon says, you know, I look forward to being older when what you look like becomes less and less an issue, and what you are is the point. And I think that's valuable too. So let's hear from a couple of you. Let's take 3 or 4 people. What are the perks or benefits of being your age, older or younger? Who wants to chime in? Yeah.
This is Donna.
Yeah, Donna.
You know from experience that it's not the end of the world. Like if you don't get a job or something happens, you know that it's not over. You can look back and go, I got through that. It's going to be fine.
Yeah, good point. Mackenzie, did you have your hand up? Or, oh, no, sorry. Okay, who has their hand up?
Homa.
Okay, Homa. Hi, Homa.
Hi. I think as we get older, we appreciate the fact that, to learn more, to get things more done and not to waste time as we were younger.
Yeah, there's a sense of urgency maybe. Hey, we can jump right on this. Yeah. What's another perk of being older? Sharon, are you adjusting your camera? Are you raising your hand?
I was raising my hand. I don't know if you can see me or not.
I can, yes.
Okay, so I got to retire last year and I love it. I've worked in the corporate world for 50 years and I get to see daylight during the day and go for walks and I can do all the Zoom meetings I want, and I'm just loving my life like never before. So I love being this age. I'm almost 68. So
yeah. Thank you. Diane, you have your hand up too?
Yes. I've started now using what I call the age card, and I'll even tell somebody. So I'm changing banks and I get confused and I say, well, I'm 82 and I live in the old folks home. And it feels, kind of fun to joke about it, but it's really true. I have some challenges there. I also have the great fortune of being in some groups where, I don't know, I feel very respected by younger people and appreciate it. And it's been very touching to have that. It's a great privilege.
Nice. Nice. And I'm sorry, is it Mamie?
Yeah, Mama. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yes. So I kind of have a twist to my answer. So, I'm 29, turning 30 this year, but I've had have always carried a perspective that people, I guess, would deem more as more of an old soul. And I've been learning more about that, where, individuals when we come on like this earth where we have a perspective, and the way we navigate the world is like as if we're an older than our carbon dated, physical self.
Yeah.
So it's like I come from, my age is very subjective for me because I appear and can pass as a high schooler. I pass, and that has its own, challenges too with this age. But, I, hang out, a lot of my people I'm friends with are 40, 50 plus. So it's kind of like this dynamic where I have a very well-rounded way of interacting with different age groups, and that's I think comes with that kind of more internal kind of perspective of the world that sometimes even cannot really be explained. And so, if that makes any sense, that's what I carry, and it's not just. It doesn't align with my 29-year-old physical kind of presentation. It's more than that. That's where it's my old soul part of me that I embrace.
I appreciate that. And from just the other comments you've made, yeah, you're going to be freed of some of that ageism, not only your ageism that you might have towards someone else, but that you won't accept it from other people because you're just you're mommy.
Yeah.
And that's the way I feel. That's the way my dad felt. He said, oh, I don't know how I feel inside or outside or whatever. I'm just Ralph. I've always been Ralph, and I'm still in there. So let's have Pam. She's got her hand up, and that'll be our last one before we move on. Pam?
Hi, I'm in my 50s, and I find like my 40s and 50s self and that of my friends in the same age group a lot more inner confidence and self-esteem and self-worth than our 20s or even 30 something selves. And no matter what the world, the ageism that happens in the world around us.
Yeah, and I appreciate that because it is it's true. A lot of my friends say that. And you can imagine, I have friends who are 10 and 15 years older than I am, and one who's 20 years older than I am. And then I have friends who are 10 and 20 years younger than I am. In fact, I have two 30-year-olds that we go out. Well, we don't go out now, but we went out. We go to movies all the time. We share the same, taste in movies and books. And my daughter's 38, and I'm friends with most of her friends. And so I think it really is just kind of like, not worrying about not tagging people again as to who they are or what their age is, but look for what they can offer and what you can offer, because there's plenty. So let's move on to oops, just trying to move my, yeah, of course Cher always has something to say, and she's had a lot of work done, if you will, but that doesn't matter. It's her choice. She says, some guy said to me, don't you think you're too old to sing rock and roll? She says, you better check with Mick Jagger. He's a lot older than I am. You've heard me say already that, oh yeah. And how do you feel about your own aging? I do want to ask that. I know we're starting to wind this up now, but it's kind of like, how do you feel about your own aging, and what is your legacy around aging? So if you think about, if you talk a lot about, it's hell being 69, or it's, this is a horrible day, or what am I going to do when if I have another fall? And I fall a lot. I'm a faller. I've broken many things and shattered many things. And not doing anything unusual either. I'm just usually walking down the street. So if you think about what is your legacy, what do you say out loud? What do you say to other people? What do you say to the younger generations in your family, whether it's your kids or your nieces and nephews and just people you encounter? That's a legacy that you're leaving about what it means to be old. Now, I'm not saying you have to, be Pollyanna and put on some different persona all the time, but if you're always going to complain about how rotten it is getting old, or how much it's affecting you in a negative way, Boy, you're not leaving a great legacy. So it's also okay to say, hey, some of the perks we just talked about, or one of the things I love being able to do now that I couldn't do before. So think about that as you continue to age. It's like, how are you talking about it all day and every day? And are you being ageist to yourself? So think about that a little bit. This is me on my 68th or 67th birthday, sorry. And I really have a playful attitude about life. I don't care if someone doesn't think I should have jumped on that horse at Two Shoes Barbecue in Ballard. I was going out to lunch with some friends for my birthday, and I jumped on the horse, and my friend did put the quarter in, and it started up, and he snapped the picture. So, you know, this is part of what 69 looks like. 69 looks a lot of different ways. And Homa, to your comment, which we'll get to in just a minute, and your question about how old you look, you could line up 20 70-year-olds or 20 50-year-olds or 20 90-year-olds. And if you tried to determine who exactly what age they were, you wouldn't be able to. You might get a general decade or two correct, but I've done it before. And it's like, it kind of doesn't matter. It kind of serves no purpose, but we'll do that if that's what you want to do, Homa.
Okay.
So people who think positively about aging live on average 7 to 10 years longer than those who have a negative view. Now, not everybody wants to live 7 to 10 years longer. I do. With the medical technology today and which they're saying genetics actually has very little to do with it. It's down to about 25%. Most of it is your own lifestyle and your view of aging. So I'm pretty sure most of you will probably live to be in your 90s or 100s. I plan to live to at least 100. I used to say 100. Now I'm thinking more like 110. I don't know if I will. I'm just saying I'm trying to get ready to. I don't want to be one of those people like, oh my God, how long will this last? You know, I'd like to be able to do it and continue doing it as well as I know how. So again, I already went here. What is your legacy around the attitude of aging? We can talk about it a little bit afterwards. I do want to respect your time and end in a reasonable period of time, but I want you to think about it. And maybe that's something, if you want to stay on the line, we can talk about that after we talk about Homa's question. So let's just look at some more positive greeting cards. I started out with greeting cards. Let's end with some more positive greeting cards, like, if gray hair is a sign of wisdom, you're a genius. And maybe do something different on your birthday. Talk to old people. They know cool stuff you don't. Or the younger person is a t-shirt on that says, talk to young people. They know cool stuff you don't. Well, let's interact a little bit more. Being one day older only matters if you're a banana. Of course, this one I'm sure you've seen, these beautiful Native American women. Wrinkles mean you laughed, gray hair means you cared, and scars mean you lived. Happy birthday. I like this one. Studies have shown that people who have more birthdays live longer.
Yeah, that's cute.
Of course, this one, magazine article maybe, 20 things that women should stop wearing after the age of 40. Numbers 1 through 20 are the weight of other people's expectations and judgments. Let's stop wearing that. And also this one, see, gray hair is actually very cute.
Oh.
Happy 60th. I like this one. Don't think of it as another year older. Think of it as another wrinkle in your birthday suit. And when I was in India about 5 years ago, I took this picture of this man outside of a temple, and he's got his hookah there. And but the legend goes, a man asked his barber, "Do you have anything for gray hair?" And the barber said, "Yes, respect."
Hmm.
Wouldn't that be a nice answer? Mm-hmm. So if you want to read more about ageism and anti-ageism, the absolute manifesto on this topic was written by Ashton Applewhite a 3 years ago, maybe 4 years ago. It's called "This Chair Rocks," her manifesto against ageism. And her blog that you can interact with her on is called Yo, Is This Ageist.com. And it's a great book. It's fairly easy read, but it's very clear. She's commenting on the institutionalized ageism and what we can do to halt it.
Can you put that in the chat, please?
Yes, I will. Or maybe Krista, you would do that. And
I'll put it in the chat for sure.
Yeah, I can send these slides to Krista, and if she has any way to send these out afterwards, they are my slides, but they're not patented or copyrighted, whatever. As you can see, I have pictures of celebrities and all that, so I have no claim to these quotes and things that I have put forth to you. So I don't mind sending the slides out if that's possible. And then last, any questions or comments before we close? I'll take those and then we'll ask Homa's question. So any final comments? What do you have, Krista? Anything?
Let's see. I just have some general comments. I don't think I have any questions.
Nope, I have one. I put my hand up.
Oh, Tina? Yeah, go ahead.
I'm 68 and a half. And I think one of the biggest perpetuators of ageism, sadly, is the government. Because I remember when I turned, I don't remember which age it was, because I was trying to find out what age is considered senior, because then you start seeing all these things that are like tickets for movies or memberships that says seniors are this price. And you're like, well, what age is senior? I used to teach a class at the senior center, and their membership age, well, actually, I don't think they have a minimum, but they consider a senior at 50. And I was nowhere near, I must have been asking in my 50s. So I was nowhere near Medicare or 65. And yet, like the YMCA, the YMCA membership said 65. And I'm like, really? Like the gold card for the seniors in restaurants is 60 something, and something else is 62, and something else is 55. And it sort of speaks to your comment about, calling people older adults, because like, what age is it? And when I checked into the YMCA thing, I remember, because I am very inquisitive, and I was so curious, like how they picked 65. And they said, well, because that's the government's, that's what they call a senior.
Yeah,
that's
I think
Medicare.
Yeah, definitely. Each organization can choose whatever they would like. So they just say discount for seniors or whatever, older adults. But yeah, AARP probably, 15 years ago, AARP, which used to be called the American Association of Retired Persons, but they totally changed that 15 or maybe 20 years ago, because they realized, first of all, not everybody retires. I hope I never retire. I don't plan to retire. I love what I do, and there's no reason for me to retire at this point. But yeah, there's no, you don't have to retire at 65. Many people want to retire a lot earlier than that. Whether they can or not is another issue. But so AARP decided, you know what, as we age, and thinking about the boomers who were reaching 50 then, they just said, hey, there's all kinds of things and resources that people should know about. So they changed their membership level to age 50. But yeah, I think I mentioned that earlier, just in passing, kind of as we get past our childbearing years and whatever, we're still an adult, but we're kind of an older adult. We're not a young adult anymore, and we're not necessarily middle-aged, but yeah, it varies, and every organization can do what they want, so it doesn't matter.
But I think of it in terms of also what you were saying about advertising and subliminal information that every age gets. Well, advertising is always targeted to the audience that watches whatever it is, so maybe quote younger adults don't see all those ads you were talking about, and people who don't stay up late don't see the ones that are on late, and the younger, it's, but it comes through in very subliminal ways as well, like the government saying, you're this age, or Social Security, or
That's right.
Is very interesting, and people who aren't in that age group don't generally, not the two young people on this, it sounds like, but generally don't know anything about that. They don't look ahead, or it's never been brought up, or their parents won't talk about it. I really wanted to commend you for the course you mentioned about death is the new sex, or if I wrote that down right. And just for what it's worth, because it's so important. I've been a hospice volunteer for 22 years now. Well, it depends if you count last year, but and there's so many people who never look at getting closer to thinking about any of that stuff. And I think one of the beautiful things about volunteering there is the group of volunteers, and how you know you have something really incredibly in common with these people of all, not the patients, but or sometimes the families, but also just this group of co-volunteers. It's very much a tribe of people with a lot in common, even though we don't necessarily see each other a lot. And they all look, they're all kinds of different ages and reasons that people come, and it's very wonderful.
Yeah, thank you for being a hospice volunteer. I've also been doing that for about 7 or 8 years now. So I want to respect everyone's time, and we want to wrap up the conversation here. So if you have other questions, stay on the line, stay on the call. We also, anyone who can, stay on to hear Homa's, or to respond to Homa's question. And a final comment I have is, I have 2 jokes that are not ageist jokes about what we can't do and what we don't know when we're older. And they are slightly naughty. There's no profanity in them. But if you want to hear those jokes, then you can stay on the line afterwards. If not, then I'll wait till the very, very end, and I'll make clear that I'm going to tell those jokes. So if you don't want to hear them, don't stay on the line. So any final comments, very quick, before we end, because we need to respect people's time and let them get to the rest of their day.
Very, very quickly, age and ageism and all these criticism or whatever negative stuff about it, it has to do with culture. As you showed the Japanese culture. I come from Iran. I'm an Iranian American. And age means great. Age means beautiful. Age means wisdom. Age means respect. Age means everything. Even though the government, you can retire at age 55 or so, it doesn't matter. It's just the cultural stuff that, you know, what ageism is, or what sexism is, or whatever it is. Okay, that was it.
I agree. Thank you very much. And yes, I had another program called Global Elders, where I not only talk about what I have noticed, because I'm a Habitat for Humanity volunteer, I have built houses in many countries, and I always ask and interview older adults, and I go to a retirement community or old folks home if they have one, and a lot of them do call them old folks homes, and many countries don't even have such a thing, because there's no need for it. And sometimes there's a need for it, but they still don't have it. But, and I do have some information about that. I'm an American, and I was raised in this culture, whatever it is, but I also ask people to share a lot in that presentation, if they are aware of other cultures and how they treat their older adults. So thank you, Homa, for bringing that up. All right, I'm going to officially close the session. Stay on if you want to answer Homa's question of how old does she look? And we had another question. Someone else, I said, can we talk about that at the end? Was it Tina? Was it you, Tina? Someone had something that I said, let's hold for that for the end as well. And then there's my joke. So thank you so much for coming. If you'd like to drop off the call, please do. And I appreciate your input. Thank you for being part of this group.
Yes, thank you so much, Dory. That was just a fantastic presentation, and I think, you know, all of us just gleaned so many wonderful nuggets from it. And I want to also thank you again, all of you, for joining us, and to Humanities Washington for their help in bringing today's program to you. And just so you know, we will be following up this program with an event evaluation form for Humanities Washington. So please watch your mail for that, and just take a moment to share your feedback. We really, really appreciate it. And I'll put our information back on screen for anyone who would like to follow up and attend more events like this one in the future.
That's correct.
So thank you again, everyone, for attending, and thank you, Dory, also, once again. We so appreciate you taking the time to do this.
Of course.
Wonderful.
Thank you.
All right.
All right. So